My name is Elena Parker. That morning, I had just placed a plate of pancakes on the table for my two kids when the phone rang. It was my mother. Her voice was light as air. Thanksgiving this year will be adults only, sweetheart. I froze. What about Jacob's kids? I asked. Silence. Then she said something that hit like a blade to the chest. Of course they're coming. They're well-behaved, polite, unlike Mia and Noah. I turned and looked at my two children hunched over their crayons, happily coloring in turkeys. They had no idea their grandparents had just erased their names from the family gathering. So let me ask you, what would you do if your own parents flat out told you your children weren't welcome? Leave a comment below and don't forget to like and subscribe so you can hear the rest of this story. Because after that phone call, I did something that would make my entire family bow their heads in silence. I set the phone down on the kitchen counter, the sound of the call ending still echoing in my ears like an invisible slap. My face burned, not from anger but from a deep ache rising in waves inside me. In the living room, Mia was carefully coloring a red maple leaf on a paper placemat, while Noah giggled as he stuck a googly eye onto a cardboard turkey. The scene should have made me smile. But my throat tightened instead. I turned away, walked into my bedroom and gently closed the door as if afraid I'd collapse under my own weight. I leaned against the wall, closed my eyes. And suddenly memories came flooding back. So vivid I could almost smell the dust in my college library, feel the sting of winter air during early morning shifts at the small cafe on the corner of Boston and Elm. Jacob was away at college back then. My parents paid his full tuition every semester, bought him a brand new Honda Civic for graduating high school, and sent him money for groceries and rent. Meanwhile, I was juggling 3 core classes, 2 electives, and working over 40 hours a week. I once got so sick I couldn't sit up, but still dragged myself into work so I wouldn't lose my shift. I once asked my mom, if I ever need help too, could you maybe? She cut me off, soft but sharp as a blade. Elena, you're stronger than Jacob. You don't need anyone's help. And I nodded. I even smiled, as I thought it was a compliment. But the older I got, the more I understood. Strong was just their excuse for leaving me out of their circle of care. I wasn't the child they were proud to brag about. I was the one they assumed would figure it out so they didn't have to care. And Jacob was the light in their eyes. No matter what he did, good, bad, or indifferent, they always found a way to defend him. When he suddenly quit his job and moved back in with our parents, I came over with homemade meals. My dad looked at me and said calmly, "Your brother is just finding his path. He's going through a late blooming phase." I said nothing, because I remembered very clearly, when I had to take a semester off after getting evicted, he only said, "You should have planned better." I don't blame Jacob. He simply used what was handed to him. I blame myself for trying so hard to earn a kind of love I should never have had to prove. When I got married, we held a small ceremony in a friend's backyard. I hoped, just this once, my parents might show up. That's all I wanted. But they said they had to visit relatives in Florida and mailed a card that said nothing but best wishes. 3 years later, I got divorced. Alone with 2 little ones, I rented a ground floor apartment on the edge of town. On moving day, I got up at 4 a.m. holding Noah on one hip while dragging boxes from the truck with the other. I called my mom, my voice shaky. "Mom, I'm not calling to ask for anything. I just wanted to know how you're doing." She replied flatly, "We're busy with Jacob's kids. It's Harper's birthday today. You'll be fine, right?" I didn't say another word. I hung up and sat on the front step, face in hands. I couldn't even cry. Sometimes even tears get tired. I assembled my own furniture, hung my own curtains, bolted my own shelves. Every nail I hammered into the wall echoed that same old refrain in my head, "You're strong, Elena." A phrase that used to inspire me, now nothing more than the hollow echo of one-sided love. Later, when Noah turned 3 and developed mild asthma, I scrambled to find specialists. One day Mia asked me, "Mom, why don't Grandma and Grandpa ever visit us like Harper's grandparents do?" I just smiled and stroked her hair. I didn't have the heart to tell her that to them, we were never truly part of the family. After this morning's cold, calculated phone call, all the dust from the past seemed swept away. There was no more explaining. No more hoping. They weren't just being biased, they had made a choice. They chose Jacob, chose his kids, and chose to cut me and my children out of the picture they called family. I walked out of the bedroom and looked at my two little ones beaming with pride as they showed me their glitter-covered turkey collage. I smiled back, but inside me something was burning low and steady. I hadn't told them yet that they wouldn't be going to Grandma and Grandpa's for Thanksgiving. I didn't know how. But I did know one thing. If I didn't do something, if I kept swallowing pain the way I always had, they'd grow up carrying the same question I once did. Why am I not enough to be loved? And I swore that would never happen. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. The house was unusually quiet under a blanket of fog. My kids were still tucked in warm blankets, while I stood in the kitchen making coffee, my mind heavy. I thought I would feel some relief after deciding not to go to my parents for Thanksgiving. But instead, a sharp emptiness crept into every finger as I held my mug and felt no warmth. I opened my laptop, planning to check my schedule for the week. But the moment I opened my inbox, I saw an email from my mother, sent just before midnight. The subject line read, "Card declined." I frowned and clicked. "Elena, I went to the store this morning and the card didn't work. They said it was locked. Can you check what's going on? Your dad really needs his meds, and we also need to get a few things for Jacob's dinner." I reread that last line. My heart went cold. Jacob's dinner. No apology. No mention of yesterday. Just a complaint about a locked card and a request to fix it. I opened my bank account tab. My chest tightened as I saw their names. Both my mother and father, still listed as authorized users on my credit card. I had forgotten about that. Years ago, after my dad's stroke, I added them temporarily so they could handle medication purchases during a rough patch. I never imagined they would keep using it without saying a word. And yet for 3 whole years they hadn't just kept the card. They'd used it like it was rightfully theirs. I scrolled through recent transactions. Apple Store. $799.99. Date 3 days ago. I froze. I hadn't bought an iPad. Mia and Noah certainly hadn't. I kept scanning, hands trembling. Target. A gourmet bakery charge for $120. Some custom cake shop I'd never been to. A Star Wars Lego set for almost $300. Just then a message popped up from Jacob. "Thanks for the surprise gift for Henry. He loves the new iPad." That was really thoughtful. I couldn't breathe. I took screenshots of the entire transaction history and saved it as a separate file. The anger didn't explode. It spread slowly, cold and methodical like frost under skin. Not because of the money. Not even the iPad. But because they had treated me like a walking wallet. No gratitude, no permission, no regard. I opened my phone, pulled up my banking app and revoked their access to the account. It took 10 seconds. But it felt like I'd finally unfastened a chain that had been choking me for years. A small sound behind me made me jump. Noah wandered into the kitchen, hair tousled, eyes barely open. "Mommy, I had a dream I was baking, but I used salt instead of sugar." He scratched his head and giggled. I knelt and pulled him close, breathing in the faint scent of milk and sleep still clinging to him. And in that moment I promised myself, I would never let anyone make these kids feel small. No one had that right. Not even the people who gave birth to me. The coffee in my hands had gone cold, but somehow my heart felt warm. Only this time the warmth came from a resolution long overdue. I wasn't going to stay silent anymore. No more compromise. No more enduring. And they, the ones who always said I was too sensitive every time I got hurt, would soon learn that when a mother like me is pushed to her limit, even silence can become a weapon. And I would use it to protect the very children they had treated like inconveniences unworthy of a seat at their table. I sent the official email just before noon. The subject line was simple: Account Access Termination Notice. The message was only a few lines long, but every word had been carefully chosen. No rage, no blame, just clear, cold facts, backed by a statement of charges I'd attached below. After hitting send, I sat still for a few seconds, eyes fixed on the screen as if bracing for a storm that could hit at any moment. And it came faster than I expected. Jacob's message popped up first. "Jacob, Elena, you're seriously overreacting. Such a small thing. Did you really need to send an email like that? Mom's really upset." I stared at the words, feeling a chill inside. Me, you call it a small thing when I paid for your kid's iPad without even knowing? Less than a minute later, another message appeared. "Jacob, it was Mom who bought it. She thought she was using their own card. Why blow this out of proportion? And let's be honest, your kids, you know how they are. They're not exactly easy. Mom just wanted a peaceful dinner. What's wrong with that? I put the phone down on the table, my hands trembling slightly. His tone was so calm it was terrifying, like everything that had happened was normal and my reaction was the real problem. Not exactly easy. I picked up the phone again. But I didn't respond with words. I opened my banking app and selected the option to generate a PDF statement for the last 3 months. Every transaction appeared plain as day. Toys, custom cakes, designer kids' clothes, movie tickets, fancy restaurants. All under the names of people I once called family. Then I opened my photo gallery and added a screenshot from Jacob's Facebook post from the previous week. His whole family gathered in the backyard, little Henry grinning ear to ear while clutching the new iPad, and my mother leaning down to stroke his hair, her face glowing. The caption read, "Henry says thanks for the surprise gift from someone very special." I saved everything in one file. Named it, Unauthorized Transactions. I opened the family group chat, the same one where my mom used to send photos of chrysanthemums every Friday and remind us all to dress up for holidays. I dropped the file in and added a single message. Just so everyone can clearly see who's really being too much. Less than 5 minutes later, the group disappeared from my messages list. I had been removed. No explanations. No calls. No apology. Just a brutal, icy silence, as if I had never existed within the circle they called family. I stood up and walked to the kitchen window looking out over the backyard. Mia and Noah were chalk drawing on the concrete, their sleeves dusty, faces glowing. The soft golden sunlight caught the curls in their hair. My eyes stung. I wasn't sad because they kicked me out of the group chat. I was sad because I had once believed that if I tried hard enough for long enough, I would finally be seen as a normal part of the family. I was sad for the years I quietly accepted being pushed aside, just to avoid making others uncomfortable. I was sad that I had to use financial records to defend the worth of the 2 children I loved more than anything. My phone buzzed again. It was a message from my mother. Just one sentence. "I didn't think you'd be so heartless." I didn't reply. I deleted the message. I wasn't being heartless. I was just finally setting boundaries. And the first of those boundaries was this. They don't get to take my money without permission and then turn around and lecture me about how to raise my children. And if that made me a stranger in their eyes, then maybe it was time I started believing it. The day before Thanksgiving, I bought 2 bundles of yellow chrysanthemums and a few dried maple branches from the farmer's market. On the way home, I turned off the radio and let the silence settle into the car. This year, there would be no countdown clock reminding me when to leave for my parents' house. No to-do list from my mom filled with dishes I was asked to bring, but never actually served. No judgmental glances when Mia accidentally dropped her bread roll or Noah asked a question a little too loudly. Instead, I had 3 close friends, a newly arrived couple from next door with a little girl Mia's age, and a long table I'd covered in a cloth with each child's name hand-lettered on colorful paper cups. I let Mia and Noah choose the menu. Mia wanted honey-roasted chicken instead of traditional turkey. Noah insisted on baking chocolate mint cupcakes, because mommy's never tried that flavor. I said yes to it all. On Thanksgiving morning, I woke up at 6 a.m. Not because I had to, but because I genuinely wanted to. The kitchen warmed quickly with the scent of butter and cinnamon, and the sound of little feet pattering on tile. Mia wore a pleated red dress and a maple leaf headband, helping me sprinkle pepper on potatoes while humming. Noah concentrated on cracking eggs without breaking the yolks, his eyes focused like he was performing a NASA experiment. Around 10 a.m., guests began to arrive. Julie, my longtime friend from back when I worked at the bank, brought pumpkin salad and a bottle of apple cider. Thomas, our neighbor, knocked on the door with a wide grin and a steaming apple pie. His wife, Maria, carried in their curly-haired daughter, Ellie, who dashed into the house like she'd lived there forever. We didn't talk about family. No one asked why I wasn't at my parents' house. They understood. Or maybe they just saw what didn't need to be said. That afternoon, when everyone raised their glasses and Mia doubled over laughing at Noah stuffing marshmallows in his cheeks until they puffed like a chipmunk, I realized something. This was family. Not because of blood. But because here no one needed permission to be themselves. I stepped out onto the porch and watched the kids play tag across a lawn dusted with golden leaves. Their laughter echoed like it was tearing down the wall I had spent years building just to survive. I no longer had to whisper "be quiet" to my children so they wouldn't draw attention. I didn't have to crouch and sweep up their harmless mistakes to gain approval. When the day wound down and most guests had left, I sat on the couch with both kids resting their heads in my lap, the scent of cookies still lingering in the air. Liam, my closest companion these past few years, texted me, "How was today?" I sent him a photo. Twinkling lights, 3 plates with a few crumbs left, and the unshakable smile still lingering on my children's faces. I didn't answer in words, but I knew Liam would understand. Later that night, after I tucked the kids in bed, I opened my phone and went to my contacts. I blocked my mother, my father, and Jacob. Then I opened my inbox and set up filters so any emails from them would go straight to archive. Eventually, I opened my annual reminder list, the one where I used to note their birthdays, Christmas gift plans, and my mom's favorite holiday dishes. I deleted each line. No hesitation. No second thoughts. Not out of anger, but because I had come to understand that holding on to certain relationships just to fill an emotional void was like holding on to a torn coat in a cold rain. It doesn't keep you warm. It only keeps you wet longer. The little house sank into quiet. I stepped into the backyard, stood under the awning, and looked up at the pale gray sky. Somewhere out there, they were probably gathered around a dinner table, laughing about a peaceful day without any drama. But here, in a home filled with real laughter, I knew I no longer belonged in that version of family. That afternoon, I had just gotten home from work, still fumbling with grocery bags at the front door when I saw a thick envelope neatly placed on the doormat. No return address, just my name typed in a crisp, cold font. I picked it up, the paper chilling in my hand even though the air was still warm. I set the bags on the kitchen counter and quietly opened it. Inside was a cream-colored letter embossed with the seal of a local law office in my city. The moment I read the first line, my stomach twisted. On behalf of Mr. and Mrs. George and Kathleen Parker, we are notifying Ms. Elena Parker of our intention to pursue legal action under the Grandparents' Rights Statute in the Massachusetts Family Law Code, due to Ms. Parker's unilateral termination of communication and restriction of visitation with their grandchildren, Mia Parker and Noah Parker. My vision blurred. I had to sit down to keep reading. They were seriously planning to sue me. Not for money. Not for property. But to use the law to force their way back into my children's lives. The same children they had rejected, insulted, and excluded from the family in a single cold phone call right before the biggest holiday of the year. Clutching the letter, I walked down the hall to the small office at the end, shut the door behind me. Each step felt like walking barefoot on gravel. I opened my laptop and typed, "Grandparents' Rights Massachusetts." Dozens of results popped up. I read every line of the statutes and legal notes. And just as I'd remembered, the state of Massachusetts did have provisions allowing grandparents to petition for visitation, especially if they had previously lived with or had a significant relationship with the child. I leaned back in my chair, gripping the armrests until my knuckles turned white. I thought back to all those Saturday afternoons when Mia was younger, how I'd drive her over to my parents' house with banana bread she baked herself, hoping her grandmother would smile or say something kind. But she barely glanced at it, pushed the plate aside, and turned to brag about Henry, Jacob's son, winning a preschool foot race. I remembered when Noah had a high fever and needed to stay overnight in the hospital. I called my mom. She picked up, listened, then asked, "Is Jacob there too? Your dad and I are planning to visit Henry today. It's not a good time." And now they wanted to force visits, to wrap cold statutes around a relationship they had never genuinely invested in. I texted Julie, my best friend, who happened to work at a major law firm in the neighboring city. "Elena, I just got a letter from my parents' lawyer. They're threatening to sue for visitation rights." Julie called instantly. "No texts, no delays. I'll send me the letter. I'll forward it to our family law team for review. Don't panic. We can handle this." I scanned and sent it. Julie was silent for a few seconds, then spoke slowly. "They've dressed it up nicely, but it's full of holes. For starters, they have no proof of consistent caregiving or a close relationship with the kids. And if I recall..." I cut in. "Exactly. The last time my mom attended Mia's birthday was when she turned 3. Mia's 8 now." Julie paused. "Then you're okay. This is a scare tactic. But I still want you to do 2 things. 1. Compile every message, email, and call from them over the past few months. 2. Document every interaction they've had with the kids over the last 5 years. I nodded even though she couldn't see it. Thank you, seriously. That night, after putting Mia and Noah to bed, I sat alone in front of my laptop, scrolling through old messages. There was the one where my mom texted, "Noah should sit away from Henry, he's too loud." Another where she commented under a photo I posted of Mia in a princess dress, "Don't let kids dress so gaudy." And the more recent ones? Just guilt trips about how I was abandoning the family. I saved everyone. Each line was another scar, another year of quiet pain now etched in digital ink. As I was about to shut the laptop, my eyes drifted toward the window. Outside, snow had begun to fall, soft and silent. Slow, steady. Like the way a woman finally learns to place a period at the end of something that once felt like unconditional love. But this wasn't over. Because I knew, this storm, it wouldn't end with just a letter. I met with my attorney on a windy Tuesday morning. Julie had referred me to a man named Patrick Hall, a specialist in family law and property disputes. His office was in an old brick building just 3 blocks from my job. Patrick invited me in, poured a cup of hot tea, and asked gently, "I've reviewed their letter. But is there anything in your financial or legal history with your parents that I should be aware of?" I sat up straight, trying to stay composed. About 6 years ago, after my divorce, I bought this condo. But my credit wasn't strong yet, and the process was complicated, so I asked my dad to co-sign as a joint owner to qualify for a better interest rate. Patrick took notes carefully. "Is he still on the deed?" I nodded, a vague sense of dread blooming in my chest. We were supposed to transfer it to my name after a year, but life got in the way. Kids, work, moving. It just kept getting pushed back. Patrick didn't speak for a few seconds. He looked at me over thin glasses, his expression serious. "Then we've got a problem." I swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" He set his pen down. "Legally, if your father is still listed as a co-owner of the property, they could argue that they have the right to enter the premises to see their grandchildren, especially if they tie it into the grandparents' rights statute. While visitation rights don't equal home entry rights, combining the two could create enough pressure to pull you into a long, messy case." I sat there, stunned. Like I just missed a step and was falling through empty space. Patrick leaned in, voice lower now. "I handled a case like this once. A single mother asked her dad to co-sign a home purchase. When their relationship soured, he petitioned for access to the house, claiming he needed to maintain his bond with the grandchild. You want to know what the court ruled?" I said nothing. In the end, the judge didn't grant him entry to the home, but he did order the mother to arrange regular meetings at a neutral site. The worst part? It forced her to stay entangled with a toxic parent for nearly 2 years. I dropped my head into my hands, overwhelmed. Every past decision, the co-signing, the procrastination, was now a noose tightening around my ability to protect my kids. I remember clearly the day I signed the papers to buy this condo. My father stood beside me, his face full of pride. "You finally have a place of your own," he said. I believed it was a warm gesture. But maybe, from the very beginning, he saw being on the title as a way to hold the keys to control. Patrick broke the silence. "We need to act fast. You have the right to petition for full ownership transfer, especially if you can prove he never contributed financially to the property. But if they've already prepared legal documents, we need to move ahead of them." I took a deep breath and nodded. "I'll do whatever it takes." Patrick gave a small smile. "Good. If there's one thing I've learned in this field, it's that a mother protecting her children with both logic and resolve is something no court can ignore." I left his office that day with a thick file in my hands, my heart heavy. But this time it wasn't fear. It was the clear awareness that there was no turning back. When I got home, Mia was at the kitchen table doing math homework. Noah ran up to hug my leg, proudly showing me the little badge his teacher gave him during art class. I knelt and held them both. They didn't need to know what was happening. But I knew, if I didn't take firm action now, someday Mia would grow up and ask why Grandma had a key to our home. Why she had to sit across from someone who once told her she was too loud to be loved. And I would never let that happen. Not while I still stood. Not while I was still their mother. Patrick and I got to work first thing the next morning. In his sunlit office, we sat across from each other, each with stacks of printed documents, bank statements, purchase contracts, digital transfers, tax receipts, and the entire transaction history from my accounts to anything related to my parents. I never thought I'd have to do this, gather every scrap of evidence like a private investigator to prove in court that the man who used to tuck me into bed, who once held my hand crossing the street, had been quietly draining my money. But I had no choice. Patrick pointed at a series of recurring charges over the past 3 months. Do you see this subscription? It's for a high-end home service, but the delivery address doesn't match yours. I leaned closer. I recognized it instantly. Jacob's house. We kept comparing notes. There were online orders, children's clothes, a wristwatch, even a gaming console, all charged to a secondary credit card my mother was still using under my name. Did you authorize them to use the card for any of these? Patrick asked. I shook my head slowly, firmly. No. I issued that card so they could buy medication for my dad. I had no idea they were still using it. Patrick scribbled something, then looked up. Good. This is unauthorized use of assets. We can include this in the response file and use it as grounds to demand they withdraw all claims. And if they persist, I'll request the court to examine their behavior as familial financial abuse. I looked at the pile of documents, my feelings torn between bitterness and relief. Bitter that I had to go this far to protect my children's peace. But relieved because for the first time I felt like I was truly in charge of my own life. That afternoon I went to the bank. At a private service desk, I opened 2 separate savings accounts for Mia and Noah. Each account had triple-layer security, unlinked from any prior family accounts. I was the sole authorized user. I transferred everything into them: college funds, insurance payouts, every dollar I'd saved from freelance work over the past 3 years. I wasn't going to let a single cent meant for my children fall into the hands of those who had tried to manipulate and control us. As I was leaving, the bank representative, a young woman with a kind smile, asked, "Would you like to name the accounts?" I thought for a moment and said, "Name it, Mom's Freedom." But she laughed softly as she typed. That's a good name. And very fitting. That evening I sat in my office under the glow of my desk lamp, reviewing the file Patrick had prepared. On the last page was an official letter addressed to the attorney representing my parents. I read every line carefully. Dear Counsel, we represent Ms. Elena Parker in response to your client's intent to pursue legal action under the Grandparents' Rights Statute. Upon thorough review of all financial documentation, we have uncovered a pattern of unauthorized transactions using a credit card registered under Ms. Parker's name, accessed by Mr. and Mrs. George and Kathleen Parker over a period exceeding 3 years. Below that was a list of detailed entries. Every item, receipt, matching delivery address, date and time of transaction, along with visual confirmation of the recipient. The final paragraph read, "Therefore, should your office continue to send threatening legal correspondence, or should Mr. and Mrs. Parker continue to exert financial or emotional pressure on our client, we will proceed with countersuit for asset misuse and breach of trust." I signed the physical copy slowly, each stroke of the pen marking a line I had once avoided crossing. The next day, Patrick sent the letter through both official email and certified mail. I received a delivery confirmation by the afternoon. Not long after, a message came in from an unknown number. "Can we just talk like family? Do we really need to drag each other to court?" I didn't respond. I quietly added the number to my block list, because I had tried to talk like family. But now I was only speaking as a mother defending her children by any means necessary. And this time I wouldn't back down. On Christmas morning I woke up early, not because of an alarm but because of Mia and Noah's laughter drifting up from the kitchen. They were whispering and giggling with Liam hiding small boxes under the couch cushions like I couldn't see them. The house smelled of cinnamon and baked goods. Twinkling lights from the tree danced on the ceiling, as if no storm had ever touched our lives in the weeks leading up to this day. I was slicing fruit when the doorbell rang. I paused, then checked the camera monitor by the front gate. It was them. My parents. Standing there in thick coats, holding a large gift box wrapped in shiny red paper with a golden bow. The wind blew my mother's hair into her face, but she didn't move it. Her eyes were fixed on the door. I stepped out and opened the door just a few inches. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, Dad." My mother spoke first, her voice shaky like she had rehearsed it 100 times. I couldn't let today go by like this. I know. I know I've made mistakes. We both have. But, can you give us a chance? We've missed too much already. My father said nothing. He stood behind her, gripping the box's handle tightly, his face drawn. I noticed his hand trembling slightly, like even he wasn't sure if they were doing the right thing. I exhaled slowly, keeping my voice calm. Mom, do you remember Noah's 4th birthday? You came, saw him wearing a paper crown and told him straight to his face, boys don't wear crowns. That night he wouldn't take the crown off. He slept in it with tears still in his eyes. My mom blinked. I don't remember. I didn't mean anything by it. I cut her off, gently but firmly. Or was it Christmas 2 years ago when Mia stood up to read the poem she wrote and you told her, hurry up so we can eat, right in front of everyone? Did you notice she folded the paper and tucked it into her pocket? She's never written a poem since that day. My father looked down in silence. I opened the door a little wider but not to invite them in. I stepped inside, picked up a folder I had prepared the day before and placed it in my mother's hands. This is the agreement. If you truly want access to Mia and Noah, I won't stop you. But it has to go through mediation. I'm requesting a minimum of 6 family therapy sessions with a licensed counselor to reassess the relationship before any in-person contact takes place. And all terms must be signed clearly with both attorneys present. My mother flinched, stepping back half a pace. Elena, you're blowing this out of proportion. We're family, why bring lawyers into it? I looked at her without anger, without sadness. Just a coldness forged over too many silent winters. Mom, for more than 30 years I've bent, stayed quiet, tried to do everything the right way, hoping I'd be seen the way you see Jacob. I forgave the times you skipped my graduations, didn't call when I gave birth to my first child, didn't ask when I filed for divorce. But I can't forgive you for hurting my kids and then coming back saying, we're family, let it go. I spoke slowly, word by word. Family doesn't use blood as an excuse to dodge accountability. Family is where people learn how to make things right, not where they hide behind tears and shiny gifts. My father stared at me for a long time. Then he set the gift box down on the porch step. We just wanted a Christmas like before, Elena. I didn't answer. I looked down at the gift, then back at them. But I've never had a Christmas like that. My mother pressed her lips together. She opened the folder, skimmed a few lines, then lowered her gaze. You really want to go this far? I didn't blink. No, Mom. I really don't. But I have to. The wind picked up, nudging the door against my hand. The scent of cinnamon from inside mingled with the crisp pine air outside. From the kitchen, Mia called out, Mom, the cookies are ready. I looked at my mother one last time. I have to go. My kids are waiting. My dad adjusted his coat. My mom stayed quiet for a few seconds, then turned away, stepping off the porch, dragging the gift they once hoped would serve as redemption. I closed the door. Not out of anger. But because I knew, if I didn't set this boundary today, there would never be a tomorrow where I could protect the 2 children I love most in this world. That was an early spring afternoon. The sky was pale blue, the sun warming the young leaves just starting to bud. I was folding Mia's clothes when the doorbell rang. I stepped out and saw a large envelope neatly placed on the doormat. No special markings, just the printed words, Matthew Associates Law Firm. I opened it at the kitchen table, sunlight slanting in through the window and casting a long shadow across the page. The message was brief. Dear Elena Parker, on behalf of our clients George and Kathleen Parker, we formally withdraw all previously submitted legal claims, including the petition under grandparents' rights and any associated complaints. We will not pursue any further legal action against you or any member of your household. I read it 3 times. I couldn't believe my eyes. Not because I had hoped for this, but because I had stopped believing they would ever stop. I folded the letter and tucked it into the file cabinet, then stepped into the living room. Mia was coloring a picture she'd been working on all week, spring in the park. Noah was putting together a fire truck puzzle. Liam stood at the door holding a bag of cookies and 2 bottles of water. Park? He asked, his smile as light as the breeze. I nodded. Park. Willow Park was less than 10 minutes from our home, but for me, it had always been the boundary between chaos and calm. No one there knew I was George and Kathleen Parker's daughter. No one knew about the almost lawsuit. No one mentioned Jacob. It was just me, my kids, and the trees swaying gently in the wind. Mia ran straight to the patch of purple flowers by the fence, shouting, "Mom! This spot looks just like in my drawing." I sat on the wooden bench, chin resting in my palm, watching her bounce around like a beam of sunlight. Noah chased after her, holding high the paper kite we'd made the week before. He laughed so loudly, cheeks flushed with joy, calling, "Mia, wait for me." Liam sat beside me. He didn't say anything at first. We just watched the kids run beneath the wide blue sky. Then he gently took my hand. "I remember asking if you'd regret cutting ties." I tilted my head toward him. "And now?" He squeezed my hand. Mia and Noah laughed louder. "You sleep deeper. Our house is quiet, but it's not empty anymore." I smiled. Not a forced smile, not one to cover anything up. Just a lightness I hadn't felt in years, as if something heavy had finally been lifted from my shoulders. I used to think I had to earn the title of daughter. Turns out, being their mother was always enough. Liam looked at me, eyes saying what words didn't need to. A soft breeze passed through. Noah's kite caught the wind and soared high. He squealed in delight. Mia clapped her hands like she'd just seen a magic trick. I looked at them. These two children who were once excluded from the family table for being too noisy, who were compared endlessly, who had cried wondering why they weren't enough, now glowing in the open sky they deserved. I no longer had to prove anything. No more explaining. No more fighting for a seat at a table where silence was the price of admission. Family to me now is the way my children look at me when they believe they're safe. It's laughter echoing in the late afternoon light. It's a hand held gently through life's storms. And it's the quiet space in my heart, once filled with wounds, now finally open to peace. If you've listened this far, I truly want to ask, what would you do? If your own family tried to control your children through the law, after never once taking accountability for the harm they caused, would you stay quiet for the sake of peace? Or stand your ground to protect the ones you love most? I don't think of myself as brave. I'm just a mother who spent too long trying to be enough. Until one day I realized that real love should never come at the cost of your self-worth. I hope this story reaches anyone who has ever felt alone inside their own family. You are not wrong for choosing peace in your own home, even if it comes at the price of distance. If you have thoughts to share, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. And if you feel this is a story worth spreading, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and join me on this journey of being a mother, a woman, and the author of your own life. Because there are many more real, honest stories still waiting to be told.